Hi, folks. Welcome back to Control Room. It's Wednesday night again here at Marshfield Community Media at the high school. I'm Joe Pasevich, and once again we have with us the award-winning Amy Troupe. The award-winning Amy Troupe.
Yes.
All right, we're going to embarrass her about that, okay? But not right now.
Oh.
We'll embarrass you, but I
okay.
promise. You deserve to be embarrassed for your award collecting. Listen, there's been a lot going on in town, all kinds of heartbreaking news, and it's hard to know where to start because I haven't had a time to script this all out. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Really? Are you feeling good about the political atmosphere and about people waking up finally?
I am, and I'm hoping it's going to continue. I'm wondering, we have a resignation in Halifax of our building commissioner.
Really?
Yep, and he's leaving on April 19th, I believe the date is. So I'm kind of curious about that.
You know what? I'll tell you, if you've got kids or if you're a young person watching this program, I would highly recommend, and if you're an honest person, there is such a need for municipal administrators and just municipal administrators to find somebody who's like, say, a good superintendent or a good building commissioner or a good town administrator or a town manager. I mean, it's I don't know what to compare it to, but it's really hard to find good people to do those jobs. We seem to run through them very quickly, so it is. To me, it's an optional, a good option for a career path, and if you're interested, check it out. I'm sure there's like people that offer like the Masters in Public Administration. What do they call that? It's something, some kind of public administration degree program that you hear about a lot.
Well, interestingly enough, last week I was emailed the classes to become a building commissioner.
Really?
Yeah, they thought I'd be a good one, and
again,
I'm not interested. But
again, there are these all kinds of degree programs that I've heard of that exist for public administrators, and we really need them. We've gone through I don't know how many treasurers in Marshfield, and we're going through another town administrator. Ooh, it's like my segue. Okay. What has been going on, you might ask? Well, okay. Maybe we should run through the whole set of events over the last week. First of all, I want to remind you, town meeting is April 28th, Monday, 7 p.m. at the high school, okay? Do not forget that. Do not forget. This is a critical town meeting. I think it's going to go pretty fast. I think we'll be done in 2 nights. Also, there is the town election coming up. May the 3rd, Saturday. Now they shortened the hours, 9 to 4. So be sure to get to the Marshfield High School Saturday, May 3rd, 9 to 4. And there are the candidates. There are 2 contested races now. For the select board, there's the incumbent Lynn Fiddler is facing a challenger, Trish Simpson. And on the school committee side, we don't have a graphic for that, but there are 2 incumbents, Richard Greer and Lara Brait. And they're on the ballot for re-election, but there's a 3rd candidate now in. It's 2 seats are up, and the 3rd candidate is named Scott Swain. I met him last night. We had a conversation. He seems like a really down-to-earth guy, very solid, very calm, even-tempered. Good stuff. Not like me, okay? Because I've run for several times for elections, and in fact, I was. Recently there was, let me first back up a little bit. We'll get around to the time I ran for election, and you might even see a picture of what a nice, handsome young dude I used to be over here, right in the middle there. Look at that guy. Who is that guy in the middle? Does that look like me at all?
I think
that's what I looked like back in, what year was that? 16 years ago. And now you see what stress has done, what town politics has done to me.
Well, now everybody wants to run.
And people are spending big bucks to get into these offices. When I ran, I didn't spend any money at all. I made a few signs. I stood on a corner. I had to be invited to debates, which gave me a platform to talk about the problems with this town. And I would go to town meetings. I'd participate. I would be a party to civil complaints. I was trying to protect our wetlands and our forested areas. I was helping people out with that. I mean, it was just so much. That's what 16 plus years will do to you, okay? And and I really didn't spend any money on anything. I never did. Like I said, I just made a few signs. And now, and at the time, people would say, "Oh, that's Joe," or "That's Bob." There was another guy named Bob. You don't know Bob. They're funny. They're silly. You know, they're naysayers. And I got Mike Maresco on tape saying that I was one of those anti-government venom-spewing naysayers that just seems to be against everything that they stand for. Those are actual words.
Well, they is the state coming down through the town administrator.
Right, and that's the problem Marshfield Town Hall has always had. Since even before I ran for this office, back around 2003, 4, there's Mike Maresco. He's former Assistant Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State, Galvin, has, I think, 12 or 13 Assistant Secretaries of State, because there are so many departments to be managed and run, and he was one of them. He used to, when you listen to him, you would think he was saying, "I am the Assistant Secretary of State." You know, it's like only one of me. But there were actually like a dozen of them.
Okay.
Like, they're like deputies, okay? But anyway, so all that time, and there were many times, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but it's fact, it's history. There were times I was the only person asking questions. And sometimes people would come up to me and say, "Joe, I'm shy, I'm afraid. You know, my daughter's trying out for the cheerleaders. Could you ask this question? I don't want to be, on the spotlight." And I would. And then Maresco would go, "Oh, we had a town meeting, and there's a certain person who got up 26 times at town meeting, and nothing he said was germane to the discussion." And I'm like, "Oh, son of a, you know?"
Well.
And people would laugh, "Oh, that's Joe and Bob. Ha, 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 they're naysayers, they're crazy people." Of course, now everybody's like, "You were right. You were right." I used to call town hall as a syndicate operation. I used to use that term. I said it's run like a syndicate. All right, there's all kinds of arm twisting in the background and funny business going on, and state influence, like I was saying. There was always been a debate in this town about the prevalence or the excessive influence of state government in Marshfield. And even like our friend here walking past behind the cameras there, he remembers that too. It was always the way it was. Anyway, so last week, after our show of last week, we had a little bit of news pop up. I think it was a Thursday morning. And Lynn Fiddler, the current chair of the select board, put out a little blurb saying, "I've just been informed," I don't think we have that my colleague, Steve Darcy, was arrested for OUI in Duxbury.
I heard about that.
And it kind of like died out. Nobody I knew wanted to make hay out of it or, talk about it much. It's like, well, maybe the guy's got a problem, But then other people started saying, if he's got a problem, he should be careful how he manages it. People start, whenever something like that happens, your judgment gets called into question, your mental state gets called into question. I was arrested holding a sign protesting Hillary Clinton, and it was theatrics, I almost got shot doing it, But I mean, it went on, and then the newspapers put it on the front page. It's just like when I was bringing lunch to my son at school, and they arrested me at the school for disturbing the school. I'm bringing my son his lunch. I mean, again, front page story. But then when I'm like exonerated and the charges are thrown out, nobody talks about it. They bury it. But forever you're labeled as the crazy person. So not only was I a crazy person for asking questions and calling it like it is in town hall, like it has been for over 20 years, that's a stigma. That stays with you. But here's Darcy, who has the highest elected position in town, and the story so far is basically buried. It just was swept away, Oh, maybe he's got some problems, shh, don't talk about it,
Well, so he was at the selectmen's meeting last night?
He was at the select board. The select board had a special meeting at 9 a.m. this
Oh.
morning, and it was
Oh.
executive session.
Okay.
So anyway, so after that happens, lo and behold, Jack Griffin pops up. What did I do? You had the, no, I had the letter. Here, what did I do it? Where's Jack's letter? Here we go. Jack Griffin pops up. There he is right there, looking all dapper, okay? Jack's a man about town, businessman, traveler, author. He's now heavily affiliated with the Winslow House. What do they call it? The Winslow House Historical Association or something. He's very active in promoting seminars and historical talks and stuff like that there. Former resident of Kent Park. I think he still has a house over on Foster Ave on the water. Well, Jack Griffin comes out with a letter. And after Darcy is arrested and arraigned, by the way, I looked to see his arraignment schedule. I went on the Plymouth Court website and I said, when's he being arraigned? And it was never published as far as I can tell. I'm trying to resolve that. So I want to share with you, this is event number 2 in this string of events, Jack Griffin's letter. And I thought about Jack Griffin. I said, yeah, I remember Jack. I see him around. He's friendly with me. He always tells me he agrees with me like 95% of the time. We're on the same page on a lot of things. And I said, yeah, I remember those days when I ran for select board against, it was a 3-way race. It was Jack Griffin running against Patty Riley. Patty Riley is the one who called the naysayers in town. She said the biggest problem, Patty Riley, there she is on her right, I think she works for the DA's office now. She said the biggest problem in Marshfield, during a seminar with a consultant, they asked her, what's the biggest problem in Marshfield? What's the biggest downside about Marshfield? And you know what her answer was? Conspiracy theorists.
Oh.
Yeah. You just missed Amy go, you know. So she's pretending to be surprised, but she knows how it is, right?
Yeah, I do.
You don't.
I definitely do.
All right. So Patty Riley said, conspiracy theorists. That's Marshfield's biggest problem, right? It's not, pollution or loss of the charm and the character of the town and destruction of wetlands and high taxes and bad traffic layouts and all that kind of stuff, or school demands and stuff. No, it's conspiracy theorists. If we didn't have those conspiracy theorists, Marshfield would be nirvana.
Isn't that the only explanation that people who are...
That want to deflect?
Yeah, that's the only thing they can say.
Right.
You know?
And sometimes it's projection. Well, it's often projection.
It is,
So there
for
I am.
sure.
So Patty was running against Jack. Jack was over here. And people said, well, Jack's a friend of Mike Maresco. All right? And we can't let a Maresco, this was back in 2008. So the Maresco's been around for a long, long time. He married into a local political family, the Linsky family, the Linskys and the Dexters. And so I said, we can't let Jack win. He's Mike Maresco's friend. So people I knew said, and Joe, you're not doing well in the polls, or people are saying you're too small, you don't have a real campaign. So we're all going to vote for Patty Riley. That's what they told me at the time. I said, all right, you don't know what you're going to get, but so that's what happened with that. So Jack Griffin, and I still talk to him. No hard feelings that I know of. I think Jack's a smart guy, and he's done a lot for the town. Comes out with this letter, and it's basically an endorsement of Trish Simpson's candidacy.
Oh.
So I'm going to read it, okay? I want to share, and we have excerpts to put on the screen so you can follow along. I want to share with you a firsthand experience that underscores the urgent need for transparency, accountability, and ethical leadership in our town government. What have I been talking about for over 20 years? And me and Parkes, and a couple of others like Steve Lynch. During my tenure as chair of the Marshfield Budget Committee, I encountered a troubling incident that speaks volumes about the current leadership's approach to governance. A few town meetings ago, several budget articles were presented that had never gone through the required review process with the Capital Budget Committee. I was stunned, as were all of us. I remember asking about it. Jack got up and said, hey, we never talked about these articles. Why are they put up on the motion on the screen? And so they had to be pulled. Sitting beside 2 other budget committee members, I looked to them in disbelief. These articles had never been presented to us. One of my colleagues who who had a complete record of all prior budget requests, confirmed that they were absent from our review. As chair, it was my duty to speak up and challenge these irregularities, which Jack did. Town Council Bob Galvin ultimately ruled in favor. Again, Bob Galvin never rules, okay? He gives opinions. In favor of the Capital Budget Committee, declaring these articles invalid, and they were pulled. Shortly after the meeting, I received an email from Kate Burke at the Select Board office stating that Town Administrator Michael Maresco wanted to meet with me. When I arrived, Mike informed me that the Select Board wanted me to resign. The Select Board wanted him to resign. Where did that come from? When I asked for an explanation, he claimed it was due to my alleged failure to attend an advisory board and Select Board meeting. I was blindsided. I had never been invited to any such meeting. I had challenged him to show me the email invitation and even offered to resign on the spot if he could produce one. Of course, there was no such email. I left the meeting knowing something was seriously wrong. Disturbed by this attempt to force me out, I can just see Maresco sitting behind the desk, you know. Hey, Jack, got a little problem with you, Jack. You know, it's you need to move. I think it's time for you to move on. You know, you've got other things to do, right, Jack? Right? Yeah. So it's like he's making him an offer that he can't refuse, right? I can just see the movie scene in my head. Disturbed by this attempt to force me out, I contacted Town Council Bob Galvin. After looking into the matter, Bob told me I could remain on the board, but would have to step down as chair. It would be a shame if something bad happened to you. You know, it's like this is the kind of.
This isn't even the town administrator's place.
Yeah.
That's the board's decision.
That's what's shocking to me is that basically what I read into this at the time was that town meeting, the people that run town meeting, that script town meeting, we could play the bingo ball incident again, okay? But the people that script town meeting, that script all the press releases, that script everything coming out of town hall because they only want you to know what they want you to know. And they say, oh, we want people to participate. Come on to the meeting. It's part of you being an active citizen. We want you. No, they don't. They don't want you there. And they don't want you asking questions. I've been saying this for 20 plus years.
They only want you there if you'll go along with what they're going to do.
And if you say anything that you disagree with them in any way, you're a naysayer, a conspiracy theorist, and you're spreading misinformation. How many times have I heard that said to me, okay? That's going to tie into another article we're going to read. We're going to read one of the press releases, one of the press stories that came out. Well, that too. So Jack leaves the meeting. Bob told me I could remain on board, that I'd have to step down as chair. So here's the town council and the town administrator, okay, like working, manipulating, and forming these boards and shifting people around. If the select board was going to do something like this, they should have met publicly.
That's correct.
And said, look, even in executive session, like he's being accused of neglecting his duties. Bingo, executive session, what's your problem? Because the select board has very broad powers when it comes to all the boards and committees in town. They can investigate anybody. They can haul anybody in and put them in executive session. Did they do that? No. No due process. Let's just move people around the way we want to, okay? That by itself, right there, bam, lack of procedure or malfeasance or abuse of power, whatever you want to call it, that's reason enough to clean them out and to clean out Maresco and to clean out the town council. He was disturbed by the attempt to force me out. In the following weeks, the two budget committee members who had stood beside me and spoke at town meeting resigned, leaving the committee short-staffed. Wow, as new applicants submitted requests to join, we would follow our usual protocol at our next meeting, carefully reviewing candidates before sending recommendations to the select board. Then something highly unusual. With only 3 of us remaining on the committee, we unanimously agreed that my mentee, that's a guy who Jack was bringing along to move up to become the new chair, would become the new chair. However, before our next meeting, I reached out to the other 2 members to confirm our decision, only to be met with an unexpected reversal. One member told me that they had changed their mind because Patrick Della Russo was now running for chair. Wow. This stunned me. Patrick wasn't even a member of the committee at the time. I soon learned that the select board had bypassed our normal process and appointed him directly to the committee.
Wow.
Suddenly, he was running for chair, and both remaining members had pledged their votes to him. So the two other members, whose names I don't know offhand, had to have been called in and said, "We have an offer for you." Now, what do they have on these people? Whoops, we lost the video. There we go. What do they have on these people that they have that kind of influence? Who was doing this? Was it Moresco and Galvin? Did they call them in and say, "This is how it's going to be"? Why don't those people tell them to go take a hike? What, no courage? No standards? No principles? To circumvent the normal process and to move people around like pieces on a chessboard? Or in this case, a checkerboard, you know? So these, honest to goodness, it reminds me of Winslow Carver, whenever there was somebody in town government that he had a low opinion of, or who thought was crude and didn't follow the rules and stuff, he'd say, "That man was born on a raft." That's just a little tidbit. Anyway, so there's Moresco apparently, and Galvin, and then they bring Patrick Delarusso, who was our town treasurer, but had to resign under very sketchy circumstances, okay? A lot of us know details about where he was caught and how he ended up in the hospital, and about some woman that was with him at the time, whose name has been given to me, by the way. Of course I'm not gonna say it, you know, but I know the insiders watch this show, so I just want them to know that I know, all right? And what some of the other details were. But that's, you know, I'm just hearing little birdies whispering to me. That's all that is, and it could be false. You know, I'm not saying it's true. This was an egregious breach of protocol. In my many years on the board, we had always vetted candidates, conducted due diligence, and voted before sending recommendations to the select board. This backdoor maneuver, backroom maneuver, I would call it, it was a blatant power grab. And something about the Capital Budget Committee, you know, there was a woman in town that's well known. She's a real trooper. She's a truth seeker, a crusader, you know, for truth and factual. She had a background in accounting, master's degree and all that. She actually was appointed to this Capital Budget Board, but she's honest. And after a few months, she saw the way the sausage was being made, and she says, "I'm out of here." That's the problem. Not only they vet people thinking they're going to get somebody on these boards that's going to be reliable and, you know, play the game, but then when somebody gets on there, like I got on the Housing Authority, and they immediately set out to make my life miserable, all right? Because an honest person gets on something asking questions, and there's really no space for you.
I made a prediction to a couple of people. I says, write a letter. There are boards that have no members on them. If you write a letter to this Board of Selectmen, I will guarantee you that there'll be 5 other letters in that file, and you will be passed over. And it's happened more than once. That's what they do.
That's the culture. That's the Massachusetts Beacon Hill political culture, which grew up and was developed over the decades, over the last century and a half. It's a cronyism thing. And there's 2 things Massachusetts exports. It's cranberries and corrupt politicians, like Adam Schiff. Okay, that's 2 things, biggest exports, right? Anyway, for those unfamiliar, Patrick Delarusso is the former town treasurer who resigned from his position with the town under questionable circumstances. That's putting it mildly. If you watch the meeting video, you'll see me refuse to step down at the start because I wanted to ensure that the public knew what was happening. The meeting recorded by Marshfield Community Television is my recall of the event. I have a copy of this meeting. I don't think I've seen that video. I have to look that up. Even more alarming is the fact that I had asked Mike Moresco in a prior recorded meeting whether all capital budgets had been properly vetted. He assured me they had. Yet the 7 articles in question were deliberately withheld from the Capital Budget Committee. Why? And this is a thing that's happening a lot. Things are being withheld. Things are being done behind the scenes. The bingo ball routine is being employed, and everything is scripted, all right? And some people are not being kept in the loop. I mean, as a housing commissioner, I have to file public records requests to get information. And I know Moresco is involved in the whole loop related to the Housing Authority.
Yeah.
He and his wife were part of transferring money under the Housing Authority's custody into a new account with no vote of the Housing Authority. No approval or vote. Now, behind the scenes, they probably got approval, but it's supposed to be done in the open. Anyway, I strongly believe that an audit should be conducted to compare the funds allocated over the past years against actual expenditures. The people of Marshfield deserve to know where their tax dollars are going.
Amen.
As a former Citizen of the Year, past president of multiple local organizations, and a dedicated supporter of the Boys and Girls Club and many other community initiatives, I have always put Marshfield first. It was devastating to hear rumors spread by certain town employees that I had been fired, quote unquote, from the budget committee. This is categorically false, and I am speaking up to set the record straight. And
Thank you.
the current chair of the select board, Lynn Fiddler, James J. Kilcoyne, who's out now, and Steve Darcy, who was arrested last week, voted to remove me without ever reaching out to me. And Lynn Fiddler is an enabler. Let's just make it plain. She's an enabler. She enables Maresco and Galvin to stay in their positions. She doesn't ask questions. And to my mind, from what I've seen, she doesn't have any analytical capabilities. It's like, like the town clerk, you got us these papers and this is, and you understand that everything's on the up and up. That's enough for me. You know, it's stuff like that. You know, she's like always in a hurry. And one of her famous quotes during a meeting is, "Let's wrap this up because there's a game on tonight."
Oh.
And she talks down to Eric Kelly like he's a misbehaving child in second grade.
I saw that on the meeting that you had on a couple weeks
Yeah,
ago.
any outsider can see it.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like you're a bad boy. You know, you go to the corner. Did they have capital punishment? I mean, not capital punishment. what's the
They do, but I don't know if
when you were in school? I mean, if you were in parochial school, you get the ruler crush and knuckles. And I remember when I was in elementary school in Boston, they used to put a cone over your head and make you stand in a corner.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not capital punishment.
Well, it was in cartoons
corporal,
when I was a
corporal
kid.
punishment. Was what?
It was in cartoons when I was a kid, but I never knew that it really happened.
Who would want to punish you, Amy? Come on. You were
I
a
was a
good
good
girl.
girl.
I'm sure you were like,
I was.
had the pink dress on and white gloves. I can see that anyway. The current chair of the select board, Lynn Fiddler, James J. Kilcoyne, and Steve Darcy voted to remove me. Oh, aren't they? See what thought goes into this process. And it's like I've said all along, without ever reaching out to me. So the select board didn't reach out to Jack, questioning the irregularities I uncovered or addressing the fabricated excuse about my supposed absence from a meeting I was never invited to. This is not leadership, it is political maneuvering at its worst. And I've said it 1,000 times. Marshfield deserves better. We need leadership that prioritizes honesty, integrity, and the well-being of a town over personal and political agendas. We need leaders who will ask the hard questions like the citizens have been asking for the last 20 or 30 years. Hold people accountable. And this is up and down government, every board and committee, all right? There's hardly one committee or board that isn't tainted in this way. And restore transparency to our local government. That is why I'm urging you to vote for Trish Simpson for the select board. With Trish, we will have a leader who will fight for fairness, advocate for transparency, and ensure that the voices of Marshfield citizens, not political insiders, are heard.
That's key.
Thank you for your time. That's right. Thank you for your time and your commitment to making Marshfield a better place for all. And it's, I guess, signed Jack. And he says a P.S. Trish never asked me to write this. I did it because we need a change. There you go. I think that deserved the time. I'm glad I put the time in to read that whole thing from Mr. Griffin. And like I've been saying, what he's referring to is how things work in town hall, the culture of town hall. And like I've said for over 20 years, even back when I was a young, handsome, energetic guy, all right, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And they go, ha ha, Joe and Bob, crazy people. You're the crazy guy with the funny name, you know. It's harder to say than O'Brien or whatever. And so, you know, one hand washes the other. When John Clifford John Clifford, who's now resurfaced, he's still making money off the town, by the way. When he resurfaced, but when he was administrator, when Rocco Longo, rest his soul, was administrator, Rocco was probably the better of the three. All right. There was some things that you could tell Rocco had a conscience about. And then now Maresco, who was put there basically by Jim Fitzgerald, who's like, you know, Jim and Mike are like this, okay? They're tied at the hip and like this, okay? They're kind of enable each other. They're like two stars that orbit each other, you know, out in the universe.
Well, one hand washes the other.
And that's the you took the phrase out of my mouth. One hand wash the other. Mike Mress goes, you select me, you're doing your job, and you're just wonderful. You're so dedicated, and you're making yourself available, and you're applying your time and your wisdom, and do. And then the selectman goes, and especially Lynn Fiddler, Mike, it's great what you're doing. Mike. It's been like that for years and years and years and years. It's
But the sad part is the problem with that is that they're not going and making sure that the property owners can afford their houses,
Right.
that they're staying within a budget, that there's enough water, clean water coming
Right.
out of their faucets,
Right.
that traffic's not going to back them up. And really larger than this is what they don't see. It's not benign. The United States is in peril from small town corruption, really.
Right.
I mean, right now, this whole thing that they want to change people's bylaws because they're outlawed. I'm sorry, again, I'm going to press upon the fact that the bylaws are protecting the properties that are purchased. When you buy a house, the bylaws protect you. Your bylaws are not outdated. You can vote 2/3 to change some, but you shouldn't just have an overhaul to go along with what the state wants you to do.
And that reminds me about MBTA zoning, and
Yeah.
it reminds me recently Christine Hill was interviewed for a spot on overrides.
Oh.
And Christine Hill and Chip Ford, God bless him, Chip Ford, and who was part of CLT, Citizens for Limited Taxation, and Chip Faulkner. Was it Chip Faulkner that married Barbara Anderson? It was the two Chips, Chip Faulkner, Chip Ford, and Chip Faulkner eventually put the ring on Barbara. Barbara, rest her soul, she's a saint. You know, she should. I'm gonna like write an icon to her. I mean, she was a real saint and a real trooper, a real campaigner. What did she drive? A little Gremlin or something? She had a little tiny economy car with all these stickers on the back window, and she drove all over the state at her expense. And you throw her a few bucks for gas and all that kind of stuff. She was on a crusade. She helped from Citizens for Limited Taxation. She helped to get past the 2.5 law,
Nice.
Prop 2.5.
That's amazing.
And Chip Ford was recently interviewed on the same news piece that was done with Christine Hill, and he said, Prop 2.5. It was designed, they set that number 2.5, allowing a town or a city to increase their tax take by 2.5% per year, and that should be enough.
Yeah.
And if you have a big project, like a big building project or something like that, it was designed to help control spending and inflation and help preserve people's wallets. Because how many people get a 2.5% year raise? Not a whole lot.
Not in the private sector.
Right.
But in the municipal.
Yeah, it's typically 2%.
Yeah.
Typically 2%.
But it helps buffer them to vote for their for everything else because they're not really seeing the increases on their property taxes as much because they get that little raise.
Yeah. And
I think it's part of the
so
design.
2.5 was designed to work that way with a provision for if you need to do an operational or a debt exclusion override, okay? But it's been crazily abused.
Especially over the last 20 years.
Yes, yes.
I don't know why we have to spend 2.5% more just because we have to. It's like
No.
giving a 5-year-old $5 and they can't wait for it to be out of their pocket. You need to teach them to put it in the piggy bank.
Right.
You know?
And while salaries are the vast majority of any town's budget, vast majority, like, you know, buying supplies and stuff is a fraction of all that. You're taking 2.5% out of the total tax levy. And so you know that everybody's not getting a 2.5% raise, all right? So there's always going to be money left over. That's the way it's designed. But anyway, going back to what the selectmen should be doing, like you're talking about, Amy, about how they're supposed to be protecting people's ability to live and survive.
That's correct.
What are people saying, like Chip Ford was saying in an interview, what's the biggest threat to seniors especially in their survival and their ability to stay in a town and keep a town affordable? What's the biggest threat?
Taxes.
Taxes.
Well, if your taxes go up on your house, they sure went up on your grocery store
Oh,
for the
yeah.
commercial property taxes. So, you know, when you're looking for your eggs to go down in price, but your taxes just went up, you might want to look at your tax bill.
Right. And anyway, so that's the job of your selectmen, all right? And our selectmen are not doing that. They're going along with the scheme that's set basically, if you want to take it really back to its source, it's set by big banks. Big banks want towns to always be borrowing, to always have plenty of money in the bank, to always be able to dip into those resources. Well, didn't it, oops, I lost the video again. Didn't it just come out recently? I think it's at Duxbury. Christine Hill wrote a story about this the other day. That Duxbury has the Rockland, one of the big banks around here. I don't want to name, I shouldn't name who they are. But they're managing something like a $35 million portfolio.
She did come out with that story the other day.
And if you're looking at the Marshfield Town annual report, which we still haven't seen, it's getting close to town meeting time, 2 weeks away from town meeting, we still haven't got the annual report. You will see numbers in there with all the trust funds and all the money that your town has in the bank, earning interest, all right, and being loaned out so somebody can make money off of that, all right? Of course, money is just printed out of thin air. It's all fiat money anyway.
Well, most of the banks are actually owned by other countries now.
A lot of foreign influence, a lot of big mega corporation like BlackRock influence and control all throughout government, and it's all keeping the wheels turning. And I'll say it again if I haven't said it.
Until we crush.
Right, but I'll say it if I haven't said it once. I've said it 100 times on this show. So that industry and all the people that coast on your money and your sweat can sit on a beach in the Caribbean drinking rum drinks surrounded by teenage prostitutes. That's a metaphor, that's an allegory, whatever you want to call it. In other words, on your back and on your sweat, there are people that are just taking your money, okay, and just living the dream, all right? And, you know, the structure of society is that pyramid, and all the serfs and the slaves are down here. And there's a few people on top, including the politicians are somewhere just below the peak, all right? They're getting money from the people on top. They're writing legislation for the people on top to keep you screwed and to keep your wallets empty, because if you have a few extra dollars, what are you going to do? You're going to contribute it to a campaign. You're going to get active. You're going to find some free time to actually participate in your town government. I've gone broke, all right, fighting these people, all right? This is not easy to do. The lady, Jane, who was fighting the 40B over in Pembroke, the astounding amounts of money they've spent.
Oh, Jane. I
Of
love
their
Jane
own,
Cornyn.
out of their own pockets to try to preserve their town, their section of town.
Yeah, because
the people in Marshfield that fight the Ferry Street 40B, all right, collected tens of thousands of dollars. The lawyers got it all, and we're going to get a crazy project, all right? So anyway.
But everybody in town should be against that, because now all those
Well,
kids
we
are
are.
going to go to school. I mean, you know, it's just crazy.
So, in other words, you're being kept poor, you're being kept under pressure, and some people, and Moresco, when he's leaving, he's leaving after having collected, what, $236,000 last year? There it is, there's a press release.
Okay.
There's a press release from the town of Marshfield. This all happened after Jack Griffin's letter. So the select board, all of a sudden, they've had a couple of meetings to talk about Mike Moresco's contract, so he knew something was up. So they published a notice saying we are going to have a special select board meeting Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. by Zoom, executive session, nobody can watch, and we're going to discuss Mike Moresco, is basically what it said. And right after that meeting, boom, this press release comes out. And you can read it. If you want to read it, just go right ahead.
I'll read it. Press release. The town of Marshfield has entered into a mutual agreement with Michael Moresco to resolve his employment status. Actually, you know, I want to know what the agreement was.
Well, exactly. This is all.
Was the agreement offering him some money to leave? Did he get a year's salary? Did he get a severance? These are things that I'm immediately
That was my
asking.
prediction. My prediction was he wanted to ease out. The pressure was too much. And here's the main point, and we'll talk about it in a minute. The main point is a political move by Lynn Fiddler. Go ahead.
The town of Marshfield and the select board would like to thank Michael Moresco for his several years of dedicated service to the town as town administrator. His prior service as a multi-term elected selectman and assessor, his numerous contributions to improving the resources and facilities of the town, including its council on aging, police station, town hall, and Department of Public Works offices and maintenance facilities. He built the town hall. I was pretty sure
Well,
that the town hall was old.
Paid by taxpayers.
Wasn't that like a 60s or a 70s built, the
Oh,
way
I
it
know,
looks?
but he spent another million and a half with new toilets and stuff. And
the
his new chambers.
Okay, gotcha. So, all right, so hail Moresco. I wonder how much those toilets cost on your tax bill.
And that was never directly authorized by the voters. That was money left over from a big override, which he applied. I called Chip Ford and I talked to Chip Ford about it. And I said, Chip, is your understanding of Prop 2.5 that he can do this? And we both looked it up, we read it together, and he said, yeah, that's what Moresco did, is he moved the money over and didn't really tell anybody the specifics of what he was up to.
His management of the COVID-19 crisis, in establishment and administration of a regional vaccine center at the Marshfield Fairgrounds. I have so much to say. And his countless hours of volunteer service to so many other town-related nonprofit organizations, including the Boys and Girls Club of Marshfield. That keeps coming up a lot. Marshfield Community Christmas and Marshfield Affordable Housing Trust. How's that helping your affordable housing in Marshfield?
Well, it's not really.
Okay, well then that's just a fund saying I am doing something. Mr. Moresco would like to offer his appreciation to the town department heads, unless you're against him, town officials, unless you're against him, and employees who he is honored to have served alongside during his time in Marshfield. April 9th, 2025. I still want to know what he got to leave. I still want to know. I mean, did he just walk away and be like, yeah, that's okay, I'll just leave?
So that broke this morning after the executive session. And Christine Hill, God bless her, from Duxbury, duxburysubstack.com. If you don't know it, get on, subscribe. I don't know what the subscription.
Real journalist.
It's like $1 a month or something. She writes, April 9, 20. She called me in the morning about this.
Wow, she knew already?
She knew, like as soon as this press release came out, she was monitoring the waves.
Wow, she's amazing.
So she called me, she interviewed me, she took a few quotes. She writes, with Marshfield Town, in the title of the article, Town Administrator Out in Marshfield, subtitle, Moresco had angered residents with his dismissive attitude towards the public's concerns. With the Marshfield town elections only 3 weeks away, the select board suddenly put out a press release this morning indicating that town administrator Michael Moresco will be leaving his position. Moresco, who is a former assistant secretary of the Commonwealth, again, one of like 12 or 13, not the assistant, has been town administrator since 2017. The select board's office refused to provide any additional information. But Joseph Pasevich, that funny guy, that crazy guy, a member of the Board of Commissioners.
Was that in the article?
Yes. A member of, no, not that part. It might as well be. A member of the Board of Commissioners of the Marshfield Housing Authority blamed politics and Moresco's treatment of town residents. Yes. So she gives me a quote. It's pretty accurate, all right, not all entirely. It's all politics. It's about getting him off the table. He's baggage for Fiddler. But the problems go beyond Moresco himself to the culture he brought to Town Hall. That's the quote that Christine Hill is offering. Longtime Marshfield resident Trish Simpson is challenging Select Board Chair Lynn Fiddler for her seat. The town elections are scheduled for May 3rd, 2025, Marshfield High School Gymnasium. Pasevich added that Moresco is great with politics inside Town Hall, but that he often treats the public with contempt. That's basically true. That's basically in line with what I said, because I have Moresco on tape and Patty Riley saying, the former select woman saying, the biggest problem in Marshfield is conspiracy theorists, and Moresco chiming in saying, yes, we have anti-government venom-spewing naysayers who have lots of free time for cable TV shows, mysteriously. In other words, we dedicate ourselves, we don't get paid to do this, okay? I've never even gotten a cup of coffee from doing this show for over 20 years. And they're criticizing us for being active and being involved and for asking questions. We are anti-government venom-spewing naysayers who are against everything that they stand for.
Well, You're not anti-government, you're anti-tyrant.
I am the government, you know?
Right. Well, we all are. If we actually play our cards right in the United States, we, the people, are supposed to run this. And anybody who's elected is supposed to work for us. You know, state rep means that you're going to represent the people of your district. So
Right.
if you vote, and I'm going to bring it up,
Go ahead.
for the audit, you have to audit. Thank you, Ken Sweezy. I know that you would have voted. I know Kathy Lenatra said no to the audit, and I am not happy about it. We need an audit. Diane Z, thank you very much for fighting.
We voted for an audit of certain funds in Marshfield, by the way, and the town council opined that it was not proper. It was legal, but it wasn't proper. And so he basically blocked, along with Maresco, there's Diane DeZoglio talking about auditing the state legislature. There's a lot of money floating around out there, as we know. And so in our town, we wanted to audit the indirect funds that come from the DPW enterprise funds that were being siphoned off by town hall for years and years and years. And the town meeting voted for it. They said, yeah, we want here, and here's even 40 grand for your expenses. And the town council nixed it. There you go.
That's fun.
One hand washes the other.
That's funny.
So anyway,
That happens in Halifax too with our town administrator. Our town administrator last night was holding the selectmen's meeting where we talk about the warrant and the articles on it, and he was against.
let's take a call.
Okay, the audit that I.
Yes, there you go. So you guys got to start digging there. We have a call. Caller, what's up?
Joe,
Yeah,
I would just like to say one thing.
one thing. Okay, we're going to hold you to one thing. No, go ahead. Whatever you want.
So it might be true that the financial team and the selectmen set forth the budget for town meeting to be voted, but all we need is 200 or 300 people to show up and actually reduce the budget by a couple percentage points, and that will show them that that's what they're going to have to do to manage the budget correctly. But if you don't show up to town meeting and you don't do that, then it's your, it's on the voters. What are you going to do if the, the same insiders keep passing the same budget that's bloated every single year? And so this year, if everyone's listening, I'm going to get up and make some amendments.
Okay.
Cut some of that money out of that budget, and you will have your chance to lower the budget of Marshfield.
Amen.
Exactly. And speaking of the budget, there's been a lot of shenanigans going on with regards to the budget. And that's something I'm going to try to cover right now a little bit. Well, thank you.
Okay, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you at town meeting, or I'll see you sooner, hopefully. Bye-bye. So, anyway, so now, everything's, there's problems. Things are not all happy and jolly and, flowers and unicorns at town hall, okay? And it's actually it's not only happening in other towns like Amy's relating to us, but it's getting more widespread play throughout the region. And going back to, there you go, Halifax Selectmen approved budget without an override, use free cash to close gap. Well, that's kind of a smart thing to do. And probably in this town, we could be meeting some big expenses that are coming up by using free cash. And actually, it seems like that's what they're doing, but they're not telling us about it. But before I go any further, I want to play upon or emphasize the fact that a lot of what's happening in Marshfield is being seen. And my mission has always been to get people from other towns to come in, especially on this show, and talk about what's happening in their towns. Because if this kind of crap isn't happening to you now, it will. All right? They all play the same game.
It's happening everywhere.
It is. Mm-hmm. And but here's an example of how some of the local issue of Steve Darcy's problems actually made it onto the Boston talk show.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Howie Carr had this to say about Steve Darcy's arrest.
Try to let this destroy your faith in local community government in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Marshfield Selectman, the board chairman, vice chairman, Steve Darcy, was arrested in Duxbury and charged with operating a motor vehicle under the influence last week. There was a report of a man slumped over a wheel at an intersection with the vehicle running on Thursday, said the Luxbury police chief in an email to the Patriot Ledger.
The Luxbury.
His next court date will be April 25th. The Marshfield Select Board has scheduled an executive session for tomorrow to discuss the, quote, reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual. Anybody we know? And how we Carr.
Anyway, it was, as we know, the meeting wasn't about Steve Darcy as far as we know. It was advertised to be about Mike Maresco. Anyway, so
Could
now,
it have had something else on it though? Could they have talked about something?
it could have been ancillary or related to it or something like that. I'm sure like all the top, especially the top Democrats in Marshfield are now the establishment people. Again, there are Democrats and then there are establishment Democrats, okay? There's liberals and then there's classical liberals. I'm sure there's a big powwow going on. What's going on, okay? And a lot of this also started concurrently at the same time that they were having select board advisory board meetings and they were discussing the budget, like the caller mentions, the budget. And I was there, and myself and Pam Keith were asking about some of the budget allocations. They had millions of dollars in free cash that they were giving out in big tranches and big blocks to different people, including the school department. And then, something I haven't seen, or I don't remember seeing it, they took $900,000 in the free cash and they put it into something called the reserve account. And I go, what's a reserve account? And basically what it is, it's like moving free cash into free cash. But they give it a new name, they call it reserve account. Or maybe it's not a new name, I don't know. I'm not a municipal finance person. So I asked the question, and there's some of the figures. They were gonna take $4.5 million plus of free cash, and including fire station renovation, all that kind of, Uncle Bud skate park. I don't know, they're always renovating that. They're always pouring money into the MUNIS, M-U-N-I-S, data management, computer management system in Town Hall, and they still haven't got it right. And now we're hearing that, and there's a bunch of payouts to the schools for Chromebooks, et cetera. They say that they lose like a fifth of them every year somehow. There's the MUNIS software, it's $370,000.
That's a lot of money.
And they're still installing it after 4, 5, 6 years. They're still installing it and they can't get it right, and all the workers there are having trouble with it. But there was the $900,000 allocation to reserve funds.
Interesting.
And we know from doing our own research, and especially because of Pam Keith, who's again accounting background, that since we joined the South Shore Vocational Technical High School district, that we're going to have more students going there, and we're on the hook to help pay for building a new school, a new South Shore Votech school. We know what that's going to be. That's going to be like $1.5 million plus dollars, or maybe $2 million a year to help pay for the new school. Don't forget the town election. There's going to be an item on the town election ballot. It's going to be a vote to do an override to help pay for the new South Shore Vocational Technical School. But here's the thing. While we're paying for the new school building, which we didn't know we were going to be paying for when we joined the district, we just wanted our kids to go to South Shore Votech, because some people had the crazy idea that if we have lots of students that are going to Votech, guess what? There'll be a plumber at my house tomorrow morning. I won't have to wait 3 weeks. Or there'll be an electrician. It doesn't work that way, okay? So here's the thing, is that there's enough money in free cash to cover the initial cost of the 30 plus students that'll be going to the Votech next year, but they hid that number. They didn't even put it on the budget.
Wow.
During the budget presentation. They had $900,000 set aside in the reserve, and I asked the town treasurer. Pam Keith vetted it out, and I asked the town treasurer. I says, in that $900,000, is any of that being held for school expenses? And the town treasurer goes, no. Well, where else is it going to come from? So they were hiding that, and in fact, who covered it? Is it South Shore News wrote an article about it, Justin Evans. Marshfield faces $710,000 budget gap for vocational school costs. It wasn't on the budget, and I wish I could read this article, but we're running out of time. But you can tell that Lynn Fiddler basically doesn't even know how the system works. She does not understand how funding of these of the South Shore Tech School goes. Let's see. And Mike Maresco referred to us joining the South Shore Vocational Technical District as the golden ticket. This is how they brushed it off. Maresco tried to, do we have the golden ticket for us, everybody to see? Here we go. There's Mike Maresco. When we voted the Voc Tech School, he found the gold. He called it the golden ticket. In other words, he was deflecting. When people said, well, where are we going to get the money to pay for our share of the school construction, and where are we going to get the money for the next 30 plus students that will projected to enroll at South Shore Vocational Technical School, and they wouldn't tell us, and it's their duty and their obligation under the law to put it on the budget and to present it to the public in these hearings, and they didn't do it. And Maresco, all he could say was, "Ooh, it's the golden ticket. You know, when we voted to join, that was the golden ticket. So everything's wonderful." But,
I have a question about it.
yeah.
Okay. So the school is going to be torn down. Is there a new place that they're building, or are they building?
Right next to it.
So they're going to build and then tear?
I would imagine so.
Okay.
Yeah. There was talk about renovation, and they said, oh, if we renovate, then we're going to move students around. We're going to get portable trailers to hold classes and all that kind of stuff. Do we have another clip that we were going to play tonight? Yes. Let's play the other clip. I don't want to miss the opportunity. And this may be a non sequitur, but we'll try to cover it.
You know, this is it, Brant Rock here in
Oh.
Marshfield. I've seen it flooded before.
It's Brant Rock during a storm. And this is probably the last issue we're going to cover. But now that's not tonight, okay? That's not live, all right? It says live, but that was recorded probably, 2 years ago or something? And you see on the right side, there's the waves crashing. Boom,
What did it look like during the perfect storm?
You don't want to know.
So it was worse than
It was
that.
20 times worse.
That was my point.
The last issue we're going to touch upon is that, as we covered there's so much to talk about.
Always.
We could do a 2-hour show easily, but then we'd be running into overtime. We talked about this last week. These are the artist conceptions. This is on the town meeting warrant, okay, April 28th, on the annual town meeting, I believe the annual town meeting warrant. There's a petition to change certain provisions of the zoning law to make it basically easier and more profitable to build something like up to 87 apartments on that stretch of Brant Rock that you just saw, on that west side of the Esplanade. That's going to be an article on the town meeting warrant. And one thing that the proponent of this project wants to do, the way it's written into the bylaws right now, if you're going to build something like this, you have to provide parking that's above the floodplain so cars don't get stranded in the water like that. They want to remove that requirement.
Well,
Can you believe that?
It's 87 units.
Right.
And retail.
And retail.
In
Well,
the flood. It's basically, an overlay zone is an AKA MBTA, because your planning boards can't do anything about it, folks.
it's an overlay district.
Yes, and so you might as well go to town meeting like it was an MBTA one. And I think that if you go to every town meeting, you can guard your wallets, you can ask questions, and if you show up like you did for MBTA, you win.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
April 28th
We
and
win.
29th, is it?
April 28th and 29th, that's Monday and Tuesday. This is not going to happen in one night. I think this is going to be a 2-night town
Plan
meeting.
on it. It's your wallet compounded and your kids' affordable housing in the future.
Right, and well, that's just it. You make it unaffordable to live here. And I'm a proponent of finding housing that's affordable and preserving modest and affordable housing.
But that's another show altogether.
It is, and the issue is that a lot, when you're on the ocean like this, you get a lot of modest cottages and houses that can be converted.
Yes.
And they get turned into McMansions, all
Yep.
right? And that's a problem with the zoning board, and guess where the zoning board comes from? It's appointed by the select board. So you've got to have a select board.
Thank you.
And I recommend everybody to look up the Selectmen's Manual, okay? It's available online. It's called the Massachusetts Selectman, and it tells you what the basic duties of a selectman are, okay? And one of them is to protect the town. Right?
Imagine that, elected officials working for you to protect you.
And
That's
by the way,
design.
Trish Simpson is using this as something that guides her.
That's what we all need to do.
Are we done? We're done. I don't know if we're going to go out with any kind of music or anything, but is there going to be any tunes on the way out? It's broken. All right, that's it for me. For Amy Troupe right here and myself, have a nice night. Have a great weekend. When you see me on the street, also check us out on YouTube and Rumble and X. Say hi, okay? Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
There it is.